The night something walked out of the storm. When the blizzard warnings first hit the radio, most people in Alder County treated it like background noise. January storms were nothing new this far north in Montana. But the one they forecasted that Thursday, it had a tone behind it. A weight. Like even the meteorologist didn't fully believe what he was reading off the teleprompter. My name is Evan Marker, and at the time, I lived alone in my late uncle's cabin, 40 miles from town, 10 miles from the nearest neighbor, and buried so deep in the pines that even GPS acted confused. I'd been there 6 months, taking time off, as everyone politely called it. Translation: I'd burned out at my last job, and a quiet winter was supposed to fix my head. But some winters take more than they give. That night, the wind started early, howling, dragging itself along the siding like it had claws. Snow piled fast, slamming sideways against the windows. By sunset, it was whiteout conditions. You couldn't see 10 feet past the porch. Fine by me. I'd stocked food, stacked firewood, tested the generator. I even pulled the old satellite battery radio off a shelf to keep myself updated if the grid failed. It failed before dinner. The lights flickered twice, then cut out with a soft electrical sigh. I grabbed a lantern, clicked it on, and the golden glow filled the living room just enough to make the shadows look like they were holding their breath. The cabin felt smaller without power. Thicker. Like the storm outside was pressing its face right up against the walls, listening. Around 9 p.m., a hollow boom shook the roof. Not thunder. More like something heavy falling onto the upper deck. I grabbed my flashlight and climbed the steps, trying to convince myself it was just wind. But the wind doesn't make footsteps. Slow, heavy ones, moving across the roof toward the back of the cabin. One step. Then another. Then another. I froze halfway up the stairs. The storm outside swallowed every sound, except those deliberate, measured thumps. Something was up there. Moving slowly. Turning. Then it stopped. Total silence. I backed down the stairs quietly, pulse hammering. My rational brain whispered, tree branch, drifting snow, roof settling. But roof settling doesn't sound like weight shifting from one boot to another. I locked every door out of habit, even though anything heavy enough to walk on a roof wasn't going to care about a deadbolt. I tried distracting myself, radio updates, a book, anything. The storm just kept swallowing the world outside. At 11:14 p.m. exactly, something tapped on the kitchen window. One tap. Then two. Then three. Not random, not wind, not ice. Knuckles. I didn't move at first. Just listened, breath caught in my throat. The lantern flickered like it felt the tension too. Tap, 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 tap. A pattern. Slow. Patient. Against everything my instincts screamed, I stepped toward the kitchen, staying low. The window was fogged from the cold. I wiped a small circle clear with my sleeve and aimed the flashlight outward. But the snow was coming in so thick I could barely see the porch railing. I didn't see a face. I didn't see a person. What I did see was worse. Bare footprints. Human. Standing inches from the window. Facing the glass. The snow swallowed them almost instantly, like the storm didn't want me to understand what I was looking at. I staggered back, heart pounding in my teeth. Then, from the roof again. Thump. 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 Slow. Heavy. Moving toward the chimney. Toward the attic hatch. That was the moment I realized something out there wasn't trying to get in. It already had a way.
The attic door. The attic hatch in my cabin wasn't the kind you forget about. It sat directly above the hallway, square, wooden, with an old iron ring you had to pull hard to open. I'd only been up there once since moving in, just long enough to confirm it was nothing but insulation, boxes, and my uncle's old camping gear. So when the heavy thumps across the roof stopped right above it, something deep in my chest tightened, an instinct older than language. I grabbed the lantern, kept my flashlight pointed upward, and stood perfectly still, trying to hear through the storm's roar. At first, nothing but the wind. Then, creak, Not from the hatch itself. From above it. Wood gently shifting, like someone's weight had settled into a crouch directly over the square opening. I stepped back slowly. The lantern glow trembled against the ceiling. The sound came again, soft, almost thoughtful. Something brushing along the boards above me. Not pacing. Not dragging. More like searching. As if it knew the hatch led somewhere. As if it was deciding. Nope. I whispered to myself, voice shaking. Not tonight. I ducked into the living room, grabbed the aluminum snow shovel I kept by the door, closest thing to a weapon in the cabin. I wasn't planning to fight anything. I just wanted something between me and whatever had decided the roof was a good place to take a stroll. The storm outside thickened until the windows rattled like teeth clattering. Snow piled halfway up the front steps. The whole cabin shivered under gusts strong enough to bend pines. Every instinct screamed to get to the truck and leave, but the driveway was buried, the road invisible, and the storm would swallow me in minutes. Staying inside was the only option. At least I thought it was until I checked the back window. Footprints again. Not many. Not a trail. Just one print. Perfect. Deep. Facing the cabin. No stride. No other steps leading to it. Like something had appeared there. Just stood. Watching. My breath fogged the glass. The lantern flickered harder. I backed away slowly. That's when the attic hatch rattled. Not violently. Just a small shake. A test. Metal against wood. A soft, almost curious sound. Then again. A little stronger. I held my breath. The wind screamed, but underneath it, I heard something else, soft tapping. Not on a window this time. Inside the walls. A single point. Then another. Slow. Steady. Like fingertips pressing wood, following the beams. Moving down. Toward me. I retreated into the kitchen, gripping the shovel so hard my knuckles went numb. My phone flashed a single bar of signal before dying again. Even the storm seemed to lean closer, muffling the world outside. Then something slid across the attic floor, directly above the kitchen ceiling. A smooth scrape, like a box being pushed aside. Followed by another. And another. It was walking around up there. Calm. Deliberate. Not confused. Not stumbling. It knew where everything was. The storm made the walls tremble. My racing thoughts were cut short by a sound that made the hair on my arms rise. Click. The iron ring on the attic hatch moved. Just a fraction. But enough to see the metal sway. No. I whispered. No, no, no. I grabbed the nearest chair, dragged it beneath the hatch, and wedged it upward tight so the hatch couldn't swing down. My hands shook so much I had to brace myself against the wall. The chair legs creaked under pressure as something above pressed down once, then again, testing the resistance. It wasn't trying to break in. It was trying to open it carefully. Quietly. Like it didn't want me to hear. And for the first time since the storm began, I realized something that hollowed me out from the inside. It wasn't stuck outside. It wasn't trying to get in. It had already been in the house. Before I noticed the roof. What the storm brought in. The chair beneath the attic hatch trembled, not from the storm, but from the pressure above it. Something pushed once more, gentler this time, almost calculating. The wooden legs creaked, but held. A soft exhale of cold air slipped through the cracks, brushing my cheek like winter fingers. I backed away slowly, shovel gripped so tight my wrist ached. The storm outside raged harder, beating the cabin in waves. Snow hammered the windows so violently the glass vibrated. Every gust came with a deep, distant groan from the pines bowing under the weight. But the sounds above me were the ones that mattered. Soft shifting. A slow crawl across the attic floorboards. A quiet settling, like someone lowering themselves onto their knees right above the hatch, listening. Then nothing. No taps. No creaks. Only silence, heavy, dense, unnatural. I stood motionless, breath shallow. The lantern's flame fluttered, casting long, shaky shadows across the walls. The wind muffled, like even the storm was holding its breath now. Seconds crawled. Minutes. No movement overhead. And then, a soft tap at the front door. Not frantic. Not forceful. Just polite. 3 slow knocks. Like a late visitor following manners. My chest tightened. I moved toward the living room, shovel raised, careful not to make the floor creak. The tapping came again, lighter this time, barely more than a brush of knuckles. I peeked through the peephole. Nothing. Just a thick sheet of snow swirling in the porch light's faint glow. But the footprints were back. Bare. Human-shaped. Facing the door directly. Except they didn't lead to the porch. They just appeared there. As if someone had been standing still long enough for snow to build around their ankles. My breath fogged the peephole. I stepped back. And the attic hatch rattled again. Not forcefully. Not desperate. Just one small, unmistakable nudge. Almost like it was reminding me it had it left. I spun around, pulse pounding so hard it echoed in my ears. That's when I noticed something else, something I had missed earlier. The kitchen window was open. Just an inch. A sliver of cold air drifted in, carrying the faintest sound, like clothing brushing across wood. My lantern dimmed, the flame shrinking low, struggling. I closed the window quickly, locked it, backed away. That's when I heard it. A soft shift from the hallway. A single footstep. Inside. The storm's roar suddenly felt far away, muted by the realization settling deep in my bones. Whatever had been outside. Whatever had paced the roof. Whatever had tapped the windows. It wasn't trying to come inside. It had already come down. Already entered. Already chosen where to stand. The cabin felt smaller. Warmer in the worst way. Like breath was building in a place breath shouldn't be. My lantern flickered once, twice, then went dark. Total black. The wind outside roared. Inside, floorboards groaned near the bedroom door, slow, hushed pressure, like someone shifting weight very carefully, trying not to be noticed. I whispered into the dark, barely audible. "Who's there?" Silence. Then, a soft, deliberate inhale. Not mine. Right behind my shoulder. I swung the flashlight around, shaking fingers struggling to switch it on. The beam finally burst through the darkness, slicing across the hallway, the walls, the doorframe. No one. But the attic hatch? Wide open. The chair pushed aside gently. Not knocked over. Not broken. Just moved. As if whoever had climbed down didn't want to be rude. A cold draft drifted down the hall, brushing past me. The footprints inside, if there were any, were already disappearing under thin layers of melting snow the storm had blown in. Something had walked out of the storm. Something had walked through the attic. Something now walked the halls. And it wasn't leaving with daylight. I grabbed my keys, boots half on, didn't bother with the coat. I stumbled into the snow, flashlight trembling, heart thundering. Behind me, the cabin door creaked shut on its own. Click. Locked. The storm swallowed everything, my footprints, the cabin, the last bit of warmth behind me. But even out there, in the blinding white, one truth followed me. Some storms don't end when you step outside. Some storms follow.